When students spoke of Professor Holloway, they lowered their voices as if the walls themselves were listening. She entered every lecture hall with a slow, spine-tightening silence, her heels echoing like countdowns to something dreadful. No one knew much about her past, only that she arrived one semester without interview, record, or background. But everyone noticed her eyes, cold, empty, watching like a surgeon studies flesh before cutting. Her class was mandatory, and those who failed her exam never returned for retakes. They simply vanished. Administration said they transferred, but no one believed that lie. Not anymore. Not after the night Jenna saw Holloway dragging a struggling student into the abandoned wing of the campus. Room B12, the room that was supposed to be sealed after the old laboratory fire. Rumors spread like infection. Students swore they heard screams under the floorboards during lectures, muffled like someone begging through duct tape. Still, no one dared report it, because those who questioned Holloway failed, and failure meant disappearance. Holloway introduced a new rule. Attendance is mandatory, and anyone absent even once would fail instantly. Students woke sick, feverish, terrified, but still crawled to class. Their faces were pale, eyes sunken, as though something was draining them slowly. Holloway smiled as she marked names on the sheet, humming softly, almost happily. When she reached a student who clearly didn't want to be there, she tapped her pen twice beside his name. Later that evening, that student never returned to his dorm. His things remained perfectly arranged, as if he evaporated midday. The next morning, Holloway began lecture as normal. But when she pulled down the projector screen, a faint bloodstain streaked across it like a dragged palm. No one dared react. No one even breathed loudly. The clock ticked, heavy like a heartbeat. Jenna's curiosity became unbearable. One night, she followed the sound, soft, rhythmic tapping echoing through the hall. It led her to a rusted metal door beneath the west staircase. She recognized the symbol carved into it, the same shape Holloway wore as a pendant. With shaking hands, Jenna pressed her ear to the door. A voice, weak, strained, whispered, "Run." Before she could move, a shadow fell across her. Professor Holloway stood inches away, her smile stretched too wide, too unnatural. "You're late for study hours," she said. Jenna tried to speak, but her throat tightened as if invisible fingers squeezed it. Holloway's cold hand brushed her cheek gently, almost lovingly. "You have such promising potential," she murmured. The next morning, Jenna sat front row, silent, eyes hollow. She attended class, but she wasn't there anymore. Holloway began teaching things no textbook ever printed. She spoke of obedience, pain, and transformation. She asked questions no sane class should answer. How much suffering can a mind endure before breaking? A boy in the back row began crying. Holloway approached him slowly, leaned close, and whispered something no one heard. The boy stopped trembling, eyes fixed forward, as if hypnotized. She returned to the board and wrote a sentence in red chalk. "Pain is not punishment, it is progress." Students copied it with shaking hands, some crying silently. Those who resisted twitched, froze, then slumped as if strings controlling them had been cut. Holloway never touched them. Her voice alone did the damage. The college walls filled with missing posters, faces of students who once laughed, studied, dreamed, now gone. Security blamed stress, claimed they ran away. But survivors whispered another truth. Holloway collected them. At night, Jenna's roommate heard scratching beneath their floor, nails dragging wood, slow, desperate. When she lifted the carpet, there were claw marks and dried blood. She wanted to report it. Instead, she found Holloway standing in her doorway, smiling as if she'd been waiting. The roommate withdrew her complaint form the next day, then disappeared. Rumors spread of a hidden basement beneath the psychology wing, locked behind a rusted steel door no student had ever opened. Late one night, Jenna and 3 others, Omar, Lucia, and Pavel, followed the sound of dragging chains echoing through the hallway. It led them to the door. Cold air seeped through its cracks like the breath of something buried alive. Lucia, trembling but determined, picked the lock with a stolen lab pin. The door groaned open, revealing stairs descending into darkness so thick it looked liquid. As they stepped down, the smell hit them first: blood, metal, and something rotten like spoiled meat. Lights flickered to life one by one, revealing cages. Dozens of them. Inside were students, pale, shaking, eyes empty like broken mirrors. When Jenna whispered their names, none responded. Some were missing limbs. Some whispered nonsense. And one, in the farthest cage, slowly lifted her head. It was the roommate who vanished. She crawled to the bars and whispered a single word: "Run." Before they could move, footsteps echoed above, slow, deliberate. Then the lights snapped off, plunging them into blackness. Lucia gasped. Omar grabbed Jenna's wrist. A soft click followed, someone locking the only exit. From the darkness, a calm voice floated down the stairs like poison. "Curiosity is a doorway," Holloway whispered. "You opened it." A flashlight beam pierced the dark, revealing her standing at the top of the steps, holding something metallic, an electric prod. She descended slowly, each footstep measured like she was savoring the fear radiating from their bodies. One student in a cage began to cry. Another laughed hysterically. Holloway smiled at them all. "Pain," she said softly, "is education." She activated the device, spitting electricity into the air. Lucia tried to run, but Holloway struck first. Her scream echoed through the basement, rattling the pipes, shaking Jenna to her knees. The lights flickered back on, revealing Holloway's eyes gleaming like wet glass. There was no doubt anymore. This wasn't a professor. This was a hunter. Omar shoved Jenna behind him, grabbing a broken pipe from the floor. Holloway's grin widened. She loved resistance. She lunged forward, but Omar swung wildly, hitting her shoulder. For a moment, she staggered. Students in cages began banging the bars, screaming for freedom through ruined throats. Jenna rushed to their locks, hands shaking, trying to break one open. Holloway recovered fast. She kicked Omar in the stomach, dropping him gasping. She pressed the sparking prod to his chest. His body arched, shaking violently. Jenna screamed his name, but Holloway only watched with fascination, like a scientist observing her favorite experiment. Lucia, barely conscious, crawled toward Jenna. "Keys," she mouthed. They spotted a ring of keys hanging from a hook near Holloway's coat. The only chance. Jenna ran. Holloway turned. The chase began. Jenna snatched the keys and threw a chemical lamp to the floor. Glass shattered, liquid ignited. Flames spread fast, climbing up the walls like hungry mouths. Students screamed as heat surged through the basement. Holloway stepped through the smoke, calm, unfazed, like fire itself obeyed her. She raised the prod, but Jenna swung a rusted chair and knocked it from her hand. Omar, barely conscious, crawled toward a cage and freed the nearest prisoner. Then another, then another. Chaos erupted. 50 students crashed through the hallway, barefoot, bleeding, eyes wild with trauma. Alarms wailed. Sprinklers exploded overhead, rain mixing with fire and screams. Holloway didn't run. She stood in the middle of the burning room, smiling through smoke and sparks. "You learned," she whispered. "Good." And she disappeared into the flames as if they swallowed her alive. By dawn, the college was a graveyard of smoke and ashes. Firefighters arrived too late. News vans surrounded the gates. Reporters swarmed like crows, hungry for horror. Students wrapped in blankets sat shaking on the grass, burned, bruised, traumatized. Holloway's body was never found. Only her scorch-marked ID card lay among the ruins, edges curled like burned skin. Authorities denied everything, called it gas leak, hysteria, mass confusion. But the survivors knew. Jenna, Omar, Lucia, and the others met every night, haunted by screams that never stopped echoing in their heads. Sometimes, late at night, they found new missing posters taped to doors, fresh ink, fresh faces. The college reopened. Classes resumed. New professors arrived. But some buildings remained locked. Some halls stayed cold. And beneath the psychology wing, workers swore they heard scratching, as if someone was still down there, waiting. A week passed. The fires were cleaned, bodies buried, classrooms repainted. Yet the campus felt wrong, like a wound poorly stitched. On the 7th night, Jenna awoke to whispering. It sounded like a lecture, calm, steady, rhythmic. But when she checked her timetable, there were no classes scheduled at 3:12 a.m. She followed the sound down the hallway. Doors trembled as she passed, as if fists hit from the other side. The basement entrance was sealed with new chains and 6 padlocks. Yet the whispers came from underneath. She pressed her ear to the floor. A soft, familiar voice murmured lesson notes. Holloway's voice. Jenna stumbled backward, shaking. Lucia found her and confessed she'd been hearing the same whispers too. Like the professor was still teaching, still collecting, still choosing who failed to escape. The next morning, 3 more students vanished. During a late study session, Omar and a few classmates stayed in the media room to finish assignments. At 2:41 a.m., every computer shut off. The projector screen rolled down with a slow mechanical sigh. Then, without anyone touching it, the projector flickered on. A lecture video began, Holloway's lecture. Not an archived file, a new recording. She stood in a dark room, eyes reflecting the camera like an animal's. Behind her were silhouettes, students chained to chairs, heads drooped like wilted flowers. Her voice was calm, cheerful, as if nothing had happened. "Welcome to the advanced course," she said. Lesson 1, Obedience. The room temperature dropped. Omar's breath turned to fog. The lights above them dimmed to blood red. When Holloway called attendance, half the students in the room felt their names spoken inside their heads rather than through speakers. 2 faint knocks echoed from the media room closet. Then a third slow, deliberate. Someone or something wanted out. Jenna, Omar, and Lucia gathered the remaining witnesses, 14 students in total. They met in the abandoned library attic, where dust hung in the air like fog. They agreed on one truth. If Holloway wasn't dead, she was recruiting. They searched for records. Her files had been scrubbed clean. Faculty acted blind. Security deleted reports. It was as if the university protected her, a secret asset rather than a criminal. Lucia proposed something unthinkable. If she's alive down there, we go back. No one wanted to, but more were vanishing every day, dragged into the dark classrooms of her ghostly curriculum. If they waited, they would be next. They armed themselves with flashlights, wire cutters, hammers, chemical flares. Tomorrow night, they would descend again. At midnight, the chain on the basement door rattled, then unlocked by itself. The survivors exchanged terrified glances but pushed forward. Stairs groaned under their weight as they descended into the charred remains of the old torture chamber. The cages were empty, no bodies, but the walls were freshly painted with lecture notes in red. Holloway had been teaching again. A projector stood at the center, playing a silent video of her face. Smiling, unblinking, waiting. The deeper they moved, the more the building above them seemed to fade. Phones lost signal. Lights dimmed. Every breath sounded too loud, like they were trespassing in another world. Then Lucia froze. A figure stood in the hallway ahead, tall, thin, wearing a burned professor's coat. Not Holloway, a student, one who should have been dead. The student opened his mouth, but instead of words, Holloway's voice spoke through him. Attendance is mandatory. Dozens of figures stepped out of the darkness. Former captives returning as obedient shadows, with empty eyes and stitched lips. They marched like soldiers as the survivors backed away in panic. The projector light flared white. The temperature rose. Screams echoed from behind walls as if reality itself was splitting. Jenna raised her hammer. If this was a class, she would fail it violently. They swung, fought, shattered skulls and shadows alike. But every fallen student dissolved into smoke, reforming seconds later. They weren't rescuing anyone. They were already too late. Lucia saw it first, the original cage still intact, covered with chains. Inside was something glowing faintly like a burning heart. The source, the anchor. Holloway didn't need a body. She needed students. And as long as the cage remained, she would never die. Jenna hurled a flare onto it. Flames crawled across the metal, turning the bars blood red. Students screamed as the spell holding them cracked like glass. Holloway shrieked through every mouth in the room, 1,000 voices collapsing into one deafening roar. The projector burst. Shadows evaporated. The basement shook. Omar dragged Lucia and Jenna toward the stairs as the ceiling split apart. Fire and dust swallowed the chamber where Holloway once ruled. And beneath the rubble, the whispers finally stopped. When the smoke cleared, the campus stood silent. Broken tiles, torn pages, and the metallic scent of fire lingering like a memory that refused to fade. Emergency teams swarmed the wreckage, but no trace of Holloway's essence remained. Only molten metal from the cage cooled in the shape of a heart, cracked down the center. Jenna stared at it, trembling, not with fear, but relief. Omar, bruised and coughing, placed a hand on her shoulder as Lucia sobbed quietly beside the exit. They had survived something no one would ever believe. Cameras flashed at them. Reporters demanded answers, but all three stayed silent. Some truths weren't meant for headlines. Some nightmares were better buried. But as the sun rose, Jenna noticed something unsettling. No missing posters. Every hallway was clean, every wall bare. Not a single trace of the vanished remained, as if they had never existed. For a week, the campus pretended to heal. Students returned. Laughter flickered like weak candlelight. Professors taught as if nothing had happened. But healing was cosmetic, paint over rot, flowers over graves. Late one night, Lucia woke to tapping on her dorm window. Soft, measured, familiar. When she pulled the curtain aside, no one stood outside. Only fog and a single missing poster pressed to the glass. Not old, fresh, printed today. Her own face stared back at her. She screamed, collapsing to the floor. Omar and Jenna rushed across campus to reach her, but the poster vanished before they arrived. Nothing remained except Lucia's shaking voice repeating, "She's not gone. She's choosing new ones." Determined to end the nightmare permanently, the trio dug through faculty archives, student records, and abandoned offices. They found Holloway's original thesis, pages stained with ink and obsession. She believed fear could be harvested like electricity. The more terrified a mind became, the stronger the collector grew. She hadn't been torturing students. She had been farming them. Omar discovered a ritual reversal, a way to starve the entity, remove fear itself. The three stood in the burned basement, holding hands over the cracked heart-shaped metal. One rule was written in bold across the page. Release requires sacrifice of memory. If they performed it, they would forget the missing students, the screams, the blood, each other. They performed the ritual at sunrise, voices trembling, eyes burning with tears they already couldn't remember why they shed. The metal heart dissolved into ash. The whispers faded like smoke on wind. When it was over, Jenna opened her eyes. She stood alone in the basement, unsure how she got there. Her phone buzzed. No contacts, no photos, no history. Only one notification. Class begins in 10 minutes. She walked outside to a campus bright and alive with students. No ruins, no fear, no Holloway. A world restored by erasing the one who saved it. Somewhere across campus, Omar passed Jenna without recognition. Lucia sat under a tree, smiling at strangers she no longer remembered. They were safe, empty, clean. Freedom had cost them everything, and no one would ever know.